Hi, everybody. Today I am so excited and honored to be speaking with author Fiona Davis. And we are going to be talking about her brand new book, The Address. And she's got the physical copy and she's going to show it to us.
Go right here.
There we go. Look at that. Hold it up further because I can't see. There we go. Awesome. Oh my God, Fiona. This book. You know what? I semi-stalked you, just so you know. Okay? And I
Excellent.
apologize if you go on social media and you see me everywhere begging you for an interview, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to talk to you so much. I know that people are probably like, why, when they get me, they're like, oh my God, yes, okay, just get rid of her, because I so wanted to talk. Everywhere I went, there you were, everywhere. This book is everywhere, okay?
Oh, that's so good.
And
I thank you so much. That's great to hear, and I love the stalk away.
a stalk away, okay? So anyway, this is an amazing story, and what I love about it is it's historical fiction. It doesn't come off as historical fiction, like you don't really understand that that's what it's going to be, but you do stick so much history in it that it does end up being a historical fiction book. And, I don't know, I'm sure that was your intent because you did a lot of research for this book, and I love learning about it. I mean, okay, so here I am in Pennsylvania. I go to New York all the time, and I've never seen the Dakota. And now I want to go, I'm like, how did I miss it? But I know how I missed it because I looked up the address today and I was like, you know what? I never went that far. I've never been that far down. But now it's my mission is to go look for it.
Good, good. It's a beautiful building. It's right on the edge of Central Park. It's just gorgeous. You really feel like, as you look at it, that you're just looking at a century of history.
Even the pictures that I saw online were crazy. I was like, wow, no wonder you went into so much detail on that architecture because it is absolutely crazy architecture for, no wonder it's down that way where it's like kind of off the beaten path of,
Mhm.
everywhere else. But the story, you had me going, and I don't give spoilers. So we're going to talk all around this story because I don't want to give anything away because as we were getting towards the end, I mean, I'm on my Kindle and I'm going like, okay, what happens? What happens? I can't. I mean, I could not have guessed the ending. I really couldn't have because how I thought it was going to end in the middle was not anywhere near how it ended up to be. So you did a fantastic job with that.
Oh, that's what I love to hear. For me, I love books that have a twist or, a plot that keeps me really wondering and almost anxious of what's going to happen, what's going to happen next. I'm not sure. And then to have what you expect completely subverted. I love those kind of books. So for me, writing historical fiction is, yes, all about the history and that world, but really about how to keep the tension up. So the
Yes.
reader wants to keep on going.
Yes, absolutely. And I have to say the tension on both ends because there's two stories going. They're 100 years apart, okay? And the tension on both was like, no, don't go back to 1885. You have to stay with 1985. And that is a sign of a good book because I don't know that I've ever quite done that before where I don't want it to be the next. I'm like, no, keep going, keep going. I want to know what happened. Don't end that. Don't end it there.
That's right, because also the problem with a lot of time step books like this are that you really love one time period and maybe not so much the other. So to really keep both of them zinging along and intriguing so that you're excited to find out what happened is hard. But to me, that's the sign of the book is working. If you like both characters in both time periods equally.
Right. And you know what? I was thinking, when I was thinking about this interview today, writing about 1885 has its difficulties, okay? Trying to make sure that you get everything pretty historically accurate. But then when you got to the 1985, I was like, you know what? That in a weird way at this point in time is also must have its challenges because of technology and keeping that right, that they only have a certain amount of technology that they were even working on 32 years ago. I graduated in 82 and I'm like, is it really that long? Yes, it is that long.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But, think about, we think that that's like current. It's not current. It's 85 is not current anymore. You still have to stick with what they were working with at that time. And so
Right.
I was thinking you probably had just as difficult of a time making sure that that was accurate as much as looking at 1885 and making sure that was accurate.
It's true, because DNA comes into the book, and I had to make sure that what I was writing about could actually have occurred at that time. And right then, they were right at the cusp of using DNA and having it, really jump into the world of science. And so that it is tricky because that was right around when I came to New York City. Was
Okay.
in the 1980s, late 1980s. So for me, it was a real joyride back in time of remembering, certain aspects of the city, like the area around the Dakota, the neighborhood it's in was really kind of scary. You wouldn't walk up Amsterdam Avenue. Now Amsterdam Avenue is full of galleries and shops and,
That's
and
interesting
gorgeous
because
shops.
I've heard that. Now, I never went there then. It's been more current that I go to New York City, but I do hear people say, like, you did not want to walk around in the 80s, on some of the streets that I walk very freely on. And it's
Yeah.
hard to imagine that, that it actually has gotten better.
Right.
Because you don't hear that about a lot of places. Usually it's like, oh, look at the dump it's become, Now it's like totally the opposite.
It's amazing. In fact, today there's just a thing that I think we've had the lowest number of murders ever. Even compared to the 1950s when there were many fewer people here.
Right.
So the city, is just so resilient. It's really amazing. And for me, the book is capturing that, how the Gilded Age of the 1880s was similar or different from the Gilded Age of the 1980s, where you had all these
Right.
bankers with their Rolex watches and everybody running around town going clubbing.
Yes.
And it's just a different kind of Gilded Age,
Yes.
but it's fun to contrast and compare.
Right. And you start off the book talking, you just put it out there right away about, because it took place in 1985 and John Lennon was just murdered in 1980. So at that point, it was a very relevant part of it wasn't quite history for them. They were still getting over that. And the fact that there were still tourists, I don't know if there are today. I don't know if people go there just to see where John Lennon, was murdered. But I don't know if you're as old as me, but I remember the day very clearly. It was a big day. I was in high school and it was a big deal,
Yeah.
And
absolutely. And today there's still tour buses go by and let people out and they all take pictures. Yeah. Strawberry Fields, which is right across the way, is constantly filled with tourists and people playing guitars and singing and flowers and tributes. So it's still just as alive today. And for me, part of the reason to set the book in 1985 and not anywhere near 1980 when he was killed was to have some kind of respectful distance from that. Because that's what a lot of people know the building for.
Right.
And you need to acknowledge it, but I really didn't want to linger there.
Right. Yeah, that's what I liked. I'm like, you threw it in there. Yeah, it was like, get rid of it right away. And it's like, this is what everybody was dealing with. And because, of course, when I realized that the book was going to be about that, that's the only thing. It's like, you say that building, that's the only thing, and people in our generation know, for the most part. That is worldwide. We know that building. And I love that. So when you call the book The Address, okay, so I kept looking for clues, like, why did she name it The Address? And I guess it's because, was that address like that famous? Like, I know it got said in there and it is there, but it's like, I was thinking, is it because that address is a popular, or because was it like in the 1800s that they were calling it that, or was it in the night, like, where did that start becoming the thing for that?
That's a very good question. It was really hard coming up with the title because for my first book, The Dollhouse, it took place in the Barbizon Hotel for Women, which was known as the Dollhouse. So that was, obvious. And for this book, it was a little trickier because the Dakota doesn't have a moniker like that. And it was really tough to figure out how to do it. And finally, we decided on the address because as a way of saying that it is a very, people know it really well, the Dakota, it is a very famous building, so the address is very famous. But also that in the 1880s, living that far uptown was considered crazy, and no one in their right mind would do it. Right. And so it's about how that geographic location has changed over time, in terms of its value. And it just seemed to work well. It's not as if people say, oh, that's the address. We kind of put that on there And then in articles that were written about it, I kind of added in, hey, it's the address to be known as, and
Right.
that kind of thing. So we had to finagle it a little. So it's not something that's overly well known like the Dollhouse with the Barbizon,
Right.
but felt like it sums up the importance of that physical location and that building in two different time periods.
Yeah, I love the story of how it was centered around women.
Mhm.
I just loved how there were men character, but they were kind of, and even though Theo, which is the main male character, it's not really about him. It's interesting. Like it was really about the women about him, around him. Instead of
Yeah.
it being really about his story, and also, so you hit on the point is a lot about alcoholism, and
Mhm.
I had two alcoholic parents. I've been to AA, and so
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way that she doesn't know about this, because there's no way that you didn't get firsthand experience of being in these meetings and knowing what happens in them. And so how did that relate to you personally?
Yeah, I've had friends who have really struggled with alcohol and drugs, and it's really hard to see someone you love change, or see just the heartache involved in watching someone struggle with addiction. I think a lot of people have firsthand knowledge of it, and it's always tough to try and write about it. So I wanted to see as a challenge to myself to see if I could pull it off in terms of having someone who is struggling with addiction, but keep her sympathetic and show, the real human side
Yeah, and I
of
thought you
it.
really, I thought you nailed her. I mean, she was
Okay.
perfect, because she didn't come off as somebody who gets it right away, because not most people don't. Most people don't. I mean, that's just the deal. Just from dealing with the people that I know, it's like, oh, I was really like really drawn to her character, and I was like, oh, she got this so good, because it's not like she walks out of rehab and is like, yay, I'm sober.
Right. No.
you know?
Yep. No, she's facing multiple challenges.
Yes. Yes, and understanding what she has to go through, and I loved her character. I love Bailey, but Sarah, I loved Sarah so much. I mean, she just what she went through, and then the second half of the book, to live more of what she went through. And I'm trying not to say stuff, so I'm sounding really stupid right now.
Right. I think the best way to describe it is that I loved writing about the luxury of the Dakota and what it was
Yes.
like to be there. But there were other sides of the city that were really awful and difficult.
Yeah.
And, and so I wanted to have two settings that were contrasting. And so
Yeah.
you have the Dakota, and then you have Blackwell's Island.
Right.
And just trying to show a grittier side
Side
of New York.
Yes. And I mean, your storytelling is unbelievable. I mean, I did not read The Dollhouse, but I'm going to now because I love your books. And I mean, I love this book so much. And how did you become a writer? Your way of storytelling is like so unique. I just have to tell you that. Like this whole story, I was just like, wow, this is really a unique story. And not just that, but the way the plot flowed. And I mean, you do have a degree, right? You have a degree in creative writing.
Yeah,
Yes.
journalism degree.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, so you have two books. They're both published. They both have done extremely well. That is it's an odd thing. It's like you got right into it. You just jumped into it, and your books are so well loved.
I'm very lucky. And yeah, I've been a journalist for about 15 years. I went back to Columbia and got a master's in journalism. And that was really eye-opening to figure out how to tell a story that's nonfiction, how to interview people, how to do the research. And all that fed into the idea of writing historical fiction. Because as I got the idea for the Dollhouse, I originally wanted to make it an article, but I was having trouble there. And so I thought, well, maybe it could be a book. And so I really approached both books the same way I would a piece of long form nonfiction.
Okay.
And so it's really about doing tons of research, getting ideas for plots and characters, interviewing people who are experts in their field about, art and architecture and what it was like back then. And from there, all these ideas start coming. And I put together the plot before I start writing. So I really know where I'm headed the entire way, although it does change often very much.
I was going to say, does it, because when you're writing from two different time periods like that, the outlines must be, and to switch, to know when to switch. I've read a lot of books where they don't know where to switch. Like I said, I think when you're begging for that other story, that's the place you want to be. And you don't want that story to end, you know? I think but it's hard to get that it's going to end, that each story is going to end. You know, I didn't want to give up Sarah, but then I didn't want to give up Bailey.
Right. And interweaving those is not easy. So, and also because there's an element of mystery involved, I have to be really careful, because if I change something in one timeline, it'll affect the other one.
Right.
And so it's a real tricky balancing game. And there are some days I just go nuts and go eat lots of chocolate. And,
that's a good idea. I get that. Did you know how it was going to end?
I did.
That? Okay.
Yes, I did. And it's a kind of different ending from my first book. I wanted to explore maybe a different way of wrapping things up. And yeah, you know, readers have really strong opinions about the endings.
They do. I think
it's great.
Yeah, I was reading some of your reviews, but everybody loved the way you did it. But they were like, "Oh my God, to get there was just crazy." But those are the best. That's the best thing somebody can say about your book is like to get there was. And it's weird because as much as I wanted to get there, I also wanted, you know, I was kind of sad, like to have the story end. Like I did love them so much that it was like, oh, I mean, yeah, I want to know what happened, but, you know, maybe a sequel. I don't know how, but, you know, it could be.
There we go. So there's some generations to fill in there.
That's what I'm saying.
You know?
There is. There could be way more, you know, tricky stuff in there to find out. So you never know. But are you, okay, so this one came out in August. Yes. Are you in the process of writing another one at the moment?
Yes. We just got a publication date for it, actually. It'll be out in August 7th. And it takes place in Grand Central Terminal.
Oh, I love Grand Central. Cipriani's?
That's right across the street. It's been a real joy. It takes place in the 1920s, when it turns out there was a really famous art school under Grand Central in the roof, called the Grand Central School of Art. It was founded by John Singer Sargent. Wow. There were 900 students a year, and so I have this amazing world that I can set part of the novel in. So that's the 1920s. And then the other time period is the 1970s, when it was just a mess. The city was going bankrupt. The terminal was just falling down and a complete wreck. And so we go back and forth in time and then have a big mystery to figure out. And it's a lot of fun to write. I'm having a great time.
Yeah. And to think, I mean, I know nothing. You know, as you say it, I'm like, I know the restaurant. Mm-hmm. I've been to the terminal. I've taken lots of pictures because it's beautiful. But I guess, you know, it's awesome that you stay in New York City. There's so much history. Like, you can hardly run out of history in New York City, you know?
Yeah. And it's helpful to me because I'm based here. And so for me, writing a book requires multiple visits. And I have to keep on going back and figuring out, all right, wait. You know, for this book, okay, is the elevator, what track is it near? It's near track 37. You know, like that kind of detail is very helpful for me to stay grounded in the world of the book. And so, you know, for me, it's helpful to just be able to jump on a subway and go there, do some research, come back and keep on writing.
Eat some breadsticks, have some pasta.
Exactly.
Of course, even underneath, because I'm thinking about where the art school would be, underneath is like a mall. It's like, I mean, now it's like...
Yeah, the art school was actually on the very top floor, on the 7th floor, on the east side. So right under the eaves of the east wing.
Interesting.
But yeah, there's so many levels and there's so many cool places to write about. And, you know, it's been...
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Well, I can't wait to read that one.
Great.
So anyway, it was so much fun. I'm so happy that we finally had a chance to talk, and I've been looking forward to this. I mean, I can't tell you how excited I was to be able to talk to you about it because I loved it. This book is everywhere, and I'm going to have all Fiona's links underneath here so you can find her. But do you know, like, okay, this is a question for an author that I was trying to figure out myself, but you might be able to answer this. I always try to find out where the book is on lists. Like, Amazon lists are easy, okay?
Yeah.
I get that. Goodreads, easy. But what about the New York Times? Like, why can't I find deeper than 15 on a list anywhere?
That's just as far as they go.
Oh, it really is? Like, they don't go deeper than 15?
I may be wrong, but I don't think so. I don't think so. USA Today does a longer list, I know.
Oh, I will look on that. So do you know any, because I was looking to see if this made... You know, I know where it is on Amazon and I know where it is on Goodreads, but did it make any of the New York Times list? Or I didn't even think about USA Today.
One of the bestseller lists is the indie bestseller list, and that's for independent bookstores. And it hit that a month after it came out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which was nice because then you get to say it's a national bestseller, so that's exciting.
That is really exciting because I have to say the thing that I was the most when I went on that list, because I read so many books, right? So I was like, I should keep track of these lists and see what's going on with my books. But what's kind of disappointing to me is that it's the same authors. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I haven't even heard of these books, but I know all the authors, and I'm like, it's like they write a book every 6 months, and then they're just right there on that. So I'm really happy for the other lists. I really am, because I don't know if that's...
it's because I agree. I think they give out a little variety.
It does. It gives out a little bit because...
Try something new.
Try something new. Absolutely. So anyway, pulled up the cover again so everybody can see it, because what I love about the Dollhouse and the address is that it has your feel to it. Like the typesetting, the cover, it has that background, that kind of gray with the pop of color. You know, I love that.
Yeah, they did such a great job with the cover and the font, everything about it. I couldn't be happier.
It's so beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Fiona. You have a great day, and I can't wait to read your next book.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right, bye.